Which one of these requel sequels did it better? Let's get into it.
Evil dies tonight!
Now I see something red.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Versus series on this page, where we pit two slasher movies against each other to see which one wins. Today we're talking about Scream 6 and Halloween Kills, the sequel to the comeback film and two of the biggest slasher franchises out there. Now before we pit these two bad boys against each other, we gotta talk about last week's results, which are officially in. Last week, we compared the two supernatural slashers, Terrifier from 2016 and A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. Over on Patreon, there were 7 votes total, 3 going to Terrifier and 4 going to A Nightmare on Elm Street, taking the win over there. Our channel members gave Nightmare on Elm Street a very clear victory here, with 95% of the votes going to that film and only 5% to the original Terrifier. I think Eric here made a really good point in the comments, saying, I love Terrifier, but without Nightmare on Elm Street, Art the Clown may never have come along. Damien Leone has created the new horror icon, but Wes created the OG in Freddy Krueger. Elm Street gets my vote, but Terrifier is a classic franchise in the making. That seems to be the overall consensus, so Nightmare gets the dub on this one, the first time the audience has agreed with me. Ooh, pretty cool. I'm very excited to see what the results on this one are going to be as well. Let's get to it. It's time for Scream 6 versus Halloween Kills. As most of you already know, the Scream and Halloween franchises like to get real dirty, but we gotta start off with the formality of the coin flip. I figured, since Chad Meeks Martin is always joking around about beheadings, that I would give Scream 6 the heads on this one. All right, and it's up, it's in the air, and bam, what's it gonna be? It's heads, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys know that that coin flip heavily affects how I do these videos, and I just, whatever it is, that's what we start with. I had a whole bit about Halloween Kills going first that I now have to change. Although Scream 6 was divisive amongst franchise fans for taking some ambitious chances, it manages to be one of the most exciting movies in this entire franchise. This movie has an entirely different flow and tone than the past 5 movies, which I really appreciate. I don't really understand the idea of doing the same thing every single time with a sequel in a respective franchise. That's just boring to me. And something that I've heavily criticized about the Scream franchise is that the first 5 movies all kind of follow the same formula. I was happy to see Scream 6 change it up big time here with some big surprises throughout. It's punk rock, it's bloody as hell, it's an exhilarating roller coaster ride from start to finish. The opening kill makes me a little sad that we didn't get to see more of Samara Weaving in another awesome radio silence flick, but my jaw hit the ground when Tony Revolori took his mask off in the opening scene. I really thought we were getting Red Right Hand for $35 million for half a second, and although we didn't, we got that in the opening scene, and I'll take it. I'm a satisfied fan right from the get-go. But most fans I've talked to really enjoy this subversion and opening scene overall. It's brutal, it's gory, it's disgusting, and Tony Revolori's monologue here is fucking amazing and creepy as hell. Some people will fight me on this, but I've never really found the Scream franchise to be all that scary, except for fleeting moments. For instance, one of the scariest moments in the entire franchise, in my opinion, is when Stu and Billy are stabbing each other in the kitchen. There's just something so depraved about that. Another one of those chilling moments for me is when Tony Revolori is talking on the phone to who he thinks is his roommate or possibly lover about killing Laura Crane in the opening. This is awful in the best way. He talks about how every time the knife went into her, she felt less and less, and how she felt just like an animal to him. This comes back later when he finds dead Greg in the fridge, to only then get stabbed and be asked, "Do you feel like an animal, Jason?" I also love Jason's motive here because it opens up the possibility of doing something else in the future besides family-oriented revenge plotlines. Oh my god, I am so sick of those. Scream franchise, stop doing that. That you almost ruined this movie with that element. Melissa Barrera proves herself as a Scream queen here with a captivating performance. It's a brilliant idea, in my opinion, for our Ghostfaces this time around to weaponize the internet to take down Sam's character before they even try to stab her. That is such a great idea for how to cover up your own killings utilizing the internet. Scream 6 is very inventive for that. This is, of course, also Richie's family trying to rewrite history and say that Richie was innocent. During the party scene in the first act, the Scream franchise sees its first bong rip. I think I speak for stoner Scream fans everywhere when I say, we've won, baby. We did it, Joe, we did it! As much as I love the flair in 6, the writing can squander that at times. Right off the bat, Tara and Sam get into an argument, or a quarrel if you're a fucking asshole, about Sam smothering poor old Tara, who's just trying to live her life. Sam argues that she's not actually dealing with her problems, she's just drinking to forget about them. Immediately there's an issue here. While all of this is actually very well written. Mindy Meeks Martin is going through the same thing, and she says, yeah, I'm just ignoring it, totally fine with that. That's how we're introduced to the character, and nobody says anything about that. The core four are like a unit in this movie, a surrogate family, and no one decided to bring that up with Mindy. We're just gonna have her be a static character this entire time, not go through really any character progression besides losing her girlfriend, which actually is really effective. But for the most part, Mindy is like written out of some of the most important sequences of this entire movie, like the third act. I feel like the writers didn't really know what to do with this Randy stand-in character, and that's why she kind of sucks in this movie. I think Jasmine Savoy Brown is an excellent actress. I'm entirely blaming the writing on this one. Besides the lack of a character arc though, Annika's death scene is super emotional because these two were together previously. You see Mindy crying out the window too after she falls to her death and hits that dumpster. I just wish they would have given Mindy more to do here opposed to just writing her out of the third act. The tension during the bodega sequence is second to none in this film. Scream 6 is a very fast-paced movie up until you get to that bodega sequence and Ghostface grabs the shotgun. It slows down to a grinding halt and then it's just Ghostface stalking through the aisles. This is fantastic tension building in my opinion and one of my favorite sequences in the entire Scream franchise. I love the way that they've written Kirby Reed here, going from Ghostface victim to badass FBI agent, but it's unfortunately one of the many things that gives away Dermot Mulroney's character as Ghostface here. They had to have a good police presence here because the other guy was like the lead antagonist. Speaking of Detective Wayne Bailey, it's now time for a slideshow of all the moments that give him away.
Hey, Jack, you call the Atlanta field office. Dig up what you can on Agent Reed. You fuck with my family, you die.
The ladder sequence, once again, builds tension so well. It's one of my favorite sequences in this whole franchise again. I don't know if I like it better than the bodega sequence because like who has a ladder in a New York apartment, but I still really dig this scene nonetheless. It also features maybe the most gnarly and definitely the most upsetting death in Annika. I can't say this enough when she hits that dumpster, dude, ooh. And now for a slideshow of Dermot Mulroney hamming it up.
It's a cop car! You can't steal a cop car!
I'm getting my ass chewed out for not dropping the case, and now you want me to do what?
Wait for it. My name's not Ethan Landry. Is it, Dad?
There are so many Easter eggs in Scream 6, I don't think I'll ever be able to find all of them. It's impressive attention to detail that should be praised. They might overplay the nostalgia a little bit in the shrine scene. Did I say a little bit? Ooh. But it's impressive work nonetheless. Gale may not be doing much in this movie besides bringing the old school fans to the movie theaters, but I do really enjoy her chase sequence. Using a frying pan to attack Ghostface and shooting through doors is some awesome Sydney moves right there that I appreciate. She should have died in that sequence though. Our first yellow flag is out on the field, ladies and gentlemen, for no emotional death here. I absolutely love the subway sequence for playing on psychology a little bit here. If someone gets stabbed on the bus in the big city, most people are just gonna run the other way and not help out, and that's kind of terrifying to think about. Scream 6 plays into that fear here, something that none of the other Scream movies have ever tried to do. Once again, very ambitious, very inventive, but it really works for me here, even if we don't get a kill. Getting into the third act, this is where the majority of the criticisms of the film come from, because the reveal here is pretty damn obvious, and I'm not gonna lie, throwing the red flag on that one. Dermot Mulroney is painfully obvious throughout this movie, very similar to how Mrs. Loomis was in Scream 2. Not only are both of these killers easy to sniff out, but they're also like living cartoon characters, which makes no sense for grieving parents. I will never understand the Looney Tunes approach to writing grieving parents in the Scream franchise, and it's something that unfortunately didn't change here in a brand new entry. The one thing I do like about our killer characters here though is that their motive is vastly different than Debbie Salt's, thank God. Billy's mother just kept denying that her good boy was bad. Dermot Mulroney and the rest of Richie's family just wants to blame it on Sam Carpenter, the one that executed him. Wayne also regrets indulging in Richie's love for this dark franchise. There's just so much more to chew on here in Scream 6 versus Scream 2 in my opinion. Way more interesting to me. This third act is triumphant and powerful, even if it does have its cake and eat it too. Chad's death, so to say, is one of the coolest in the entire franchise, but then of course they had to bring him back just like Dewey in Scream 2. This is something that's been heavily criticized by fans, but it doesn't really bug me all that much. We got to see two ghost faces attack somebody at the same time. I'll take it. Please do more of that, Scream franchise. Don't do less for the next one. And maybe my favorite part of all of Scream 6 is that they ended Stu theories forever by killing Ethan Landry, one of the many ghost faces in this film, with the same TV that killed Stu Macher back in 1996. You all heard me. Now let's head on over to Haddonfield to talk about Halloween Kills. A quick disclaimer before we start reviewing this flick too. I feel like it was only fair to watch the theatrical cut specifically of this movie to compare it to Scream 6. There are some things added in the extended cut which makes the pacing a little smoother, but that is something that I won't be talking about here. I just felt like that wasn't fair. You guys could argue with me about that in the comments, I guess. Halloween Kills is a brutal, misunderstood sequel that packs surprising punches throughout. Starting right from this cold open with Cameron, I really love the way that he's written in this film. He goes from drunk, pissy incel to selfless sacrifice in this movie, and I really appreciate it. The writing there is fantastic. This might be a hot take, but I will gladly go on record to say that Halloween Kills has the best attention to detail in terms of recreating the vibe and tone of an original film that it's based off of. The flashback sequences to 1978 Halloween are spot on. Like, you could edit those into the original movie and you probably wouldn't bat an eye. It looks exactly like how it did in 1978. Say what you want about David Gordon Green, but Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills are so impressive. I get goosebumps every time Dr. Loomis runs in and says, "Did Michael kill again?" They made this guy look and sound exactly like Donald Pleasance. It is eerie. I simply can't praise this enough. I'm blown away by this every time I rewatch it. Tommy Doyle, this time played by Anthony Michael Hall, is a very controversial character in Halloween Kills. A lot of people don't like his catchphrase, which we'll talk about in a second. But I do find it really funny that he's like this massive buzzkill at this talent show, just getting up on stage and bringing the tone down with a sob story. I hate the way that this scene is written. I wish that Tommy Doyle had just like come to dinner with all of the other survivors of the original massacre and maybe just started bringing down the mood a little bit and everyone started drinking again or whatever. This should have been at a booth like aside from the talent show that was happening where they were all just talking about it and being thankful that they're still alive. 1,000 apologies for the firemen watching this video right now, but it is very awesome when Michael Myers just gets to run through this whole squad. He executes these otherwise heroes in vicious ways, man. Halloween Kills unfortunately writes itself into a corner with Laurie Strode, making her hospital bound the entire movie. Very similar to what happened in Halloween 2. This is a massive red flag in my opinion because Laurie Strode doesn't do anything in this movie. At least in Halloween 2, Laurie Strode gets to do something in the third act. She doesn't do anything in this movie. It's crazy how both of these movies take a problem from a previous sequel and don't really do that much with it, especially here in Halloween Kills. This might not be a fair criticism, but it's hard to watch this movie and not think about how Halloween Ends retcons or discontinues some of its coolest elements. Sandra survives her really cool death with the light bulb. Hawkins does absolutely nothing to stop Michael after all of this setup in the previous film. Lindsay had no reason to survive Michael Myers because she does nothing in Halloween Ends, and the main characters are pushed aside to focus on a whiny 20-something who sucks. Emphasis on the sucks. This happens so fast in the movie, but I never really caught where the "Evil Dies Tonight" chant came from until this most recent rewatch. Hearing that Michael Myers may be out in the parking lot, Tommy takes the bat from behind the bar and puts some money into a donation box. On the box, it reads "Love Lives Today," which Tommy utters before leaving the bar. Marion Chambers retorts saying, "But evil dies tonight," coining the soon-to-be hated phrase. I love the idea presented here of the town coming together to stop this evil force once and for all. Even if they are ripping it off of Halloween 4, I think Halloween Kills does it a little better. This chant, though, does get a little annoying, especially by the time we get to the hospital. I'm personally not as bothered by it as other Halloween fans, but it is a little annoying, I will say that. I also love everything that happens with the other escapee from the sanitarium. It's this crazy misdirection that leads our town down the wrong path and to the death of the wrong guy. We actually saw this character in the opening of Halloween 2018. He's the guy who has a problem with shoelaces being untied. Y'all thought that was a bunch of nonsense. Nope, they were setting that up from the beginning. Some people really hate this, and I don't really understand why. It's a super emotional moment to watch this guy fall to his death, and to think that the town did this out of paranoia is fucking chaos, man. I love it. 10 out of 10. This is a great moment. Not all the horror in your slasher movie has to come from the slasher himself. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Big John and Little John are like my favorite side characters of the entire DGG trilogy. They're goofy, they're funny, they're emotional, they're a wonderful old couple, and goddamn, I'm so mad that they died. The kills in this movie have been criticized for being very goofy. The gun in the door is probably the best example of that. But there's not really a kill in this movie that's super disappointing to me, and they're always fun to watch. It works as a nice juxtaposition to the overly tragic storyline we're following here. And this movie definitely ends with the townsfolk of Haddonfield killing Michael Myers in the street. Nothing else happens after that. Michael does not somehow walk around all of the police to get back to his room and kill Karen. That definitely doesn't happen. And there is definitely not another movie after this one. There's a lot of good reasons to compare Halloween Kills and Scream 6 together. They're second in the requel run for both franchises. They both take ambitious swings, they have brutal kills, and they're both criticized for their third acts or weird mistakes from the past. Dermot Mulroney being super obvious in Scream 6 and Laurie Strode being bedridden in Halloween Kills. Kills. With all things considered, I think I have to give this one to Scream 6. This is, in my opinion, another close one. I really enjoy both Halloween Kills and Scream 6, but Scream 6 just does it for me, baby. Not only does my personal preference and bias live with Scream 6, but I also feel like if there's a big deciding factor here, if there's one thing that Scream 6 just simply did better than Halloween Kills, it's the fact that they did kind of improve upon things over the past, where Halloween Kills does not. Laurie Strode is bedridden the entire movie and doesn't even really do anything in the third act, like how she does in Halloween 2. Dermot Mulroney may be obvious in Scream 6, but I love his motive to death. I think it's way cooler than what they did in Scream 2. I also feel like Scream 6 is more of a triumphant movie over Scream 2. Like, Scream 2 is kind of a bummer when you think about it, man. Sydney had to give in to doing that Diane Sawyer interview. Sam Carpenter's just being a badass here, stabbing the crap out of everybody in this movie. That's just my opinion, though, because the decision ultimately lies in the hands of the community. Channel members and patrons can decide right now, which movie do you think is better, Halloween Kills or Scream 6? Sign up today to vote in the most recent poll. The link for that is in the description below. What do you guys think about both of these movies, though? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this brand new Versus video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content in the future. Please consider supporting me on Patreon by clicking on the link in the description below. And as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.